Hey everybody, welcome back to Thousand Words Show. My name's Matt Addington. Just a place to tell stories about photos, and you've heard the phrase before, photos worth 1,000 words, and man, I think sometimes it's a lot more than 1,000. And I've been blessed to travel around the world and tell stories with cameras, but I think I was even reminded this week on a shoot, visiting with another couple of photographers, like it's the story that goes along with it that so many people don't get to see that is really enjoyable. And that's kind of why I wanted to do this and wanted to bring in guests like my friend Drew Butterwick, who we've got here today. Drew has, again, also traveled the world, caught some of the most incredible experiences, and the photos themselves stand out and are stunning, but I think the stories that Drew is able to tell will amaze you as well. So Drew, from Texas, right now, you're all over the place usually, but appreciate you coming on today, and it's always great to talk to you and tell stories with you, but appreciate you coming on the show today.
Yeah, it's nice to be home for a change. Actually getting a bunch of rain in Texas, so it's had me indoors. I've done a little bit of editing as of late and updated some website things, which, as you know, being a field person is the thing that we tend to fall behind on. So, we're good at photos and great at telling stories, but not so good at the admin sometimes.
Exactly. It's kind of like the shoemaker's kids thing. I haven't even looked at my website in probably 18 months. I should probably go in there and refresh it. But Drew and I have been talking about trying to get together to do this podcast for, I mean, it's been months and months and months, and we text each other and, hey, where are you at right now? And Drew's like, I'm in Spain, and I'm here, and we're we're going to Alaska. I'm going to be in Africa. I'm here, I'm there. And so finally that we are both kind of in our home bases. I'm really glad that this worked out today.
Yeah, likewise.
So, you've got a lot of things going on. You're obviously super talented photographer. You are, I'd say, one of the most keen and effective people in the hospitality world too. Every time I've been with you, you are a guy that has the great ability to make experiences awesome for people, and then at the same time be able to tell stories with your camera. Rewind to the point that, like, you kind of got going with what you're doing, and you put a camera in your hands, or somebody put a camera in your hands, or you picked one up and kind of found this passion for photography and storytelling. Just go back and tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I kind of been in and out of it my whole life. So high school, I got a camera for a birthday present. I always enjoyed the outdoors and wildlife. I mean, I think pretty much since, I could bust through the screen door and get outside. I broke out of my room apparently when I was like 2 to go play with the Huskies outside by the river and got in some serious trouble. And I don't think I've liked the indoors since. I took some photography in college. Fine arts was my minor. I moved out into the business world some years later and actually went to work for a video and television production company. So originally with them as a graphic artist, and then as an editor, and eventually moved into doing some camera work, directorial stuff, whatnot. So I kind of I had that big picture. I could see what the project was going to look like. I could help put together the storyboards and shot lists and things. So it wasn't just, behind the camera. It was also thinking about, where we needed to be with the camera, what we needed to accomplish, what shots we needed to create. And then I basically moved into a marketing role, career-wise in the outdoor industry. I shot more video than I did photos. Although I did photos, I shot marketing for hunting and fishing lodges and resorts, outdoor companies, real estate, big ranches. And that allowed me to kind of, start cruising around the world, going to a lot of different places, a lot of new experiences. And then, as of late, kind of jumping way ahead to where we are now, COVID. So, we all got locked down, couldn't go anywhere. And I took that opportunity to really decide, okay, the part of my game that is missing is really detailed edits and technical on the camera side, like really technical camera stuff. Exactly proper ISOs for what we're doing, and where you can push the envelope to not have too much noise, or better settings for super low light. How to take the photo that technically was going to be there. Obviously artistically you can do it, but if you don't have the technical, then it's useless for a magazine photo or a print or anything. So that was kind of a springboard. I went out and I had access in Texas to these conservation properties that there was no hunting on them. Basically, they were just growing, breeding uh, these exotic species. So it was almost like a mini Africa experience. And I was actually able to do these photo safaris in Texas with local photographers that couldn't go anywhere either. And that created this photography workshop business. I had access to all these international venues. I knew these people. I'd been there. And this was kind of me dipping my toe in. What if I start taking people on these tours with me myself and start doing the instruction, get them to the places? What I found is that even professional photographers that don't want to, they're not looking for technical advice from me. They're not looking for how to use their camera. These people know what to do, but they don't necessarily know where to go, or they don't have connections in that specialized place. And I mean, a lot of people will ask me, where did you go to get this? And, I'll say South Africa, I'll say Kenya. But if they've never been, they don't understand that that's like saying, where do you live? And saying, I live in the United States. I mean, or saying, I went to Texas, and just leaving it at that. Because then you get into that region, and then you get into that special area in that region, that time of year, and then exactly when the migration is happening, or when the dry period is, or when these specific water holes are getting hit, or and it is a matter of trying to be at the right place at the right time, like chasing the seasons. And the areas that I go to, there is no accident about why I'm there, when I'm there. I am there at that time of year that's technically supposed to be the hottest, the best, whether it's for the salmon run or the wildebeest migration, whatever it is. So yeah, that's kind of jumping up to where we are.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is so true with regard to, people can, and it, again, goes back to what I was saying about loving the story behind the photo. Somebody can look at a beautiful photo hanging on a wall or in a, in a magazine or something that you've shared on social media, and all of the logistics that took you to that point. We don't get to just show up and a lion steps up and you just shoot it, or a grizzly bear, or choose your animal, choose your experience. The logistics of one, getting there, getting to that place, these are a lot of times extremely remote, extremely exotic places in the world. But like you said, knowing the, when is the time to go to South Africa, that all of the animals that you want to see are not laying in the grass all day long and you're not going to get to see them. When is the time to go to Alaska to see the bears when they are fishing and they're not, maybe they're on the tidal flats and you want fishing shots. There's so many things timing wise. And again, all the way back to what you do, you have a real gift from all of my experience with you, with all the logistics and understanding all of those things and being able to provide people, a great experience without having to worry about the details. And I think that probably goes all the way back to your, your role as a producer and a director, and, being able to manage an entire production or an entire trip or whatever it is. Not everybody can do that. And I think if you're going to go on these trips, you want to do, a photo safari, you want to do a photo workshop or something, to have people in place that you can use as a resource like yourself is super powerful. And, I want to be able to do some teaching, but I also realize behind the scenes, I need to be able to, get all of the things, whether it be accommodations or drivers or guides or timing, or all of those things. And your business now has provided that. And it's funny that you mentioned COVID was so many people, when you start talking about the past and what got you to this, COVID was such a little bit of a pivot for so many people, where we all had an opportunity to kind of sit back and evaluate and decide, like, what does this look like and what does life look like. And for you, it was kind of a pivot into something that you've found, kind of found a newfound passion, if you will.
Yeah, when Trump announced that he was shutting down travel, I was leaving the next day to fly to France, to go to Spain, to go to Kenya. I was leaving the next day, and I had kind of decided that I was still going to go, even though they were having issues in other countries and whatnot. I really wasn't that I wasn't aware of the situation, but I just wasn't going to be a locked in my basement type person. It's just not
Yeah.
my nature.
Yeah.
If wine's going to give me a
I was
mindset, I'll
getting
get
on a
it.
plane to go to China, literally at the same time, and I mean, who knows? Maybe I'd probably still be there or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, it was a funny time. But and it, nothing that we would
That
ever
was
want
going to
to
be
do.
your photography trip to Wuhan, right? You were going to go
Yeah, exactly.
take
I was
photos of pangolins and bats.
going to some like yeah, it was bats and then some lab stuff. I'm not sure what it was, but thankfully didn't do it. We've got a shared passion. We've been on different parts of the world together, but we've never been in Africa together. You and I got to spend some time in New Zealand together in an incredible place last year with Venatar,
Yeah.
which is mind blowing, and I hope we get a chance to go back together again. But Africa has been that one kind of common ground that you and I share, just share a passion for. Not only the personal experience, but being able to share that with other people, and some of the photos that you kind of brought to the table today were obviously Africa photos, and in a place that we could probably talk for hours and hours and hours. But before we get into even talking specific photos, just talk a little bit about Africa. Like, what is it that has been the pull for you with regard to that?
Well, I was told on my very first trip, 20 something years ago, that once the sands of Africa get on your boots, you can never get them clean. And it's the truth. Once you've been there, it's not like going to another continent. It's like going to another planet. If you look at North America, right? Like maybe the two best venues in North America for wildlife photography would be Yellowstone and Alaska, arguably. There's obviously some other great places, opportunities, but those two are probably the mecca for photography in North America. And so if you look at both of those, what's amazing is that you can get 5, 6, 7 large mammal species, opportunities, and you're not exactly sure what you're going to run into each day. And the scenery's there. You've got the scenes for your naturescapes. There's drama. And then you go to Africa and you just take that and multiply it times 10. And, it's like the best of the best of the best on steroids. And leaving out of camp, no matter what you think you're going to do or see or experience that day, you don't. If you can predict it, you're some kind of wizard, because there's no way to know what it's going to bring. You can have an idea of a direction. You can go back to a kill from the day before or something like that and have a pretty good idea that you're going to get hyenas or jackals or something. But the mystery of what that day brings is something that I truly love. And then when at the end of a trip, you're going to have however many just amazing images, you're guaranteed to have the opportunities to get those images. And some of these venues, you come home and you're like, it was a fun trip, it was a super cool experience, wildlife was great, but man, I didn't really get any prints. I didn't get any, I just didn't get a lot of epic shots.
I think there's something, you go back to what you said about your first trip there. Um, like, when people say, when you get married or you have kids or like all of these, oh, it'll never be the same. You won't believe I mean, Africa's that way. Like, all the people that told me before I went the first time, like, oh, it gets in you. There was something like I found like innately native or African, like inside of me, I felt like that was pulled out all of a sudden that I never knew was there. And it was the animals and the experiences and the beauty and all of those things, but it was the culture and the people and just the way of life too that there's just a simple joy about the folks that I've been able to interact with in Africa that we're desperately seeking here, like the next best thing and the next biggest thing and more stuff. The joy that the people have there, I think, just with very little is also one of the things that continues to draw me back and just resonates, I think, with my heart as much as anything.
One thing that I enjoy there, and it parallels exactly what you're saying, is that when I go back and I see friends, or I go back to trackers and drivers that I use again and again, people that I know super well. I mean, I've got friends over there that I've had for over 20 years, been in weddings with. Um, they always say, "Welcome home." And no place else that I have ever gone do they say that except for at my actual house. No one ever says, "Welcome home." And over there, do they know? They know that to me, I don't know if it feels like my second home, if it really feels like, where maybe I belong. Maybe in my previous life, I was some little bushman running around with a little spear.
I
I
just,
don't
like I
know.
said, I feel like there's something Africa in each of us for some reason. I don't know if that's just me. It sounds like you've had the same experience, and
Cradle of life, maybe, perhaps. I don't know.
yeah,
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 yes,
yeah.
sir.
The the I'm going to show one photo here that kind of think sets the stage for some of the images that we'll talk about. And like I said, you and I could go back and forth and look at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of wonderful images that probably hang in both of our homes and have great stories to them. But the just kind of this wide angle landscape of the Mara River in Kenya, I think kind of sets the stage for what you and I have both experienced, that a lot of people that have gone there have experienced. In Kenya, you've got the safari vehicle kind of parked above the river. Your experience there during the migration. Um, I'm going to pull up also this image of the wildebeest, that's going off the edge into the river, and as the migration is happening. But just set the stage for the Mara and how that maybe represents kind of stereotypical Africa.
So, I mean, obviously, the Great Migration. It's the epic kind of coup de grace. If you're going to go to Africa to see and experience and photograph something, it's that great wildebeest, zebra migration from Tanzania to Kenya and back. And for me, it's kind of the best and the worst of photography, that experience, because so many people are there to see it. It's like a bear jam in Yellowstone. So here comes the sow, and she's got her cubs, and everybody's there, and they want to see it, and the chaos almost overshadows the actual wildlife event. Everybody wants to see it, which is great, but then so many people are there simultaneously that it doesn't even become a wildlife event anymore. It becomes more like a zoo event. So the Mara, you've got this staging up, right? You've got the river below with its rapids, and there's hippos, and there's crocodiles, and there are, steep edges on both sides going in from, millions of years of erosion. It's a perilous place. I mean, there's precipices and teeth and claws, and the lions are sitting there waiting to get their share. The hyenas are sitting there to get their share. So you've got this amazing drama that surrounds it. But you're also there with 40 or 50 other vehicles, which means you're there with 150 or 200 other people, so many, so much time. So it's hard to get the shots that you think you see on National Geographic or whatnot, because it's not like what you have in your mind. And if you get in position and you get there in the evening and the sun's going down and you can get the angle right on the light, I mean, then it's the best of the best. I mean, it's hard to compare that to anything else for a better experience in a photography opportunity. That one photo that you're going to show, the landscape one, it was just myself and our other, another one of our great mutual friends, Chris Hood. We were there together. And I remember Chris stopping shooting actually while we were doing this. And he said, if that isn't a naturescape shot, I mean, just everything's there, from the palm tree in the left corner to the hippos in the right corner. I mean, you can't stage stuff that well.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of out of Africa or Lion King. I mean, it's the stereotype. It's the storybook we read as kids that you flip open and it's like, oh, that's what Africa is. And it is. Like when you are there, you catch yourself stopping and looking around and going, this is the storybook that I looked at when I was a little kid. It's animals everywhere, and the sunsets and sunrises just hit a little different there, whether it be, I think it's just, God has put his hand upon that place and said, like, this is going to be, a magical experience. And you kind of captured it here. The wildebeest action, and you're talking about the crocs in the river and the hippos and the lions, and it's this confluence of life and death and movement and action and energy, and put aside all the people that are there to see and experience that. I have yet to be there for the migration, but you said I in kind of a joking way said I experienced it once and that's probably enough, and that's kind of where I'm at too. I'm like, I want to see it once. I don't have a desire to go back and be there with crowds of people that are all watching the same thing, but it's kind of one of those things I want to see one time. You've got the image, I think, in a beautiful fine art sort of way, the crop, the light, the image, the vertical of the wildebeest kind of going off the edge, and it can be a real perilous, these animals a lot of times are jumping to their death, but they know they need to stay with the group. They need to get from A to B to stay alive and to get back to the pastures to be able to survive the next year. But talk a little bit about, one, the experience of capturing this wildebeest, but I also want you to talk a little bit about framing, composition, cropping, some of just the technical things that afterwards went into your thoughts on what, I could see a beautiful tall canvas hanging on a wall of this wildebeest kind of going off as a part of the migration.
Well, and it's one of the few photos that I've actually won an award for. I did get a golden camera for this, and I'm not a big, photo contest guy. Actually, COVID sitting around, I entered all kinds of photo contests because I didn't have anything else to do but, learn how to barbecue and make good crawfish. So, editing, eating pork, and entering photo contests. But so that's how this came to be, is we're on this ridge on the edge of the river, and all this drama is taking place. And it's hard to focus, because the hippos are getting ready to fight in front of you, and then this group is going to go through the river, then they don't, and the crocodiles start to move up, and then the zebra are fighting on the top of the hillside, and the light's better and worse because there was rain that day, and the clouds were breaking, and so you've got the sun diffused, and then it's too dark, and then it's bright, so you are constantly rolling through. I'm not an auto ISO guy, so you're just constantly running through shutter speed and aperture up and down, kind of trying to blend, and some stuff slower to kind of maybe get a little bit of motion blur in there, and then some stuff super fast, shooting 1-2,000 because these animals are crashing through the water and you want to get all that. And in that whole event, this one wildebeest gets confused. So there's two paths that thousands of them were coming down and splitting on a kind of like a Y intersection. And one couldn't figure out where to go. And instead of backing up like 20 yards and following the rest down this path, it just started bellowing on the edge of this cliff. And I said to Chris, it's going to jump. It's not going to back up. It's so panicked and so confused. It's just going to jump. And, it's like a 50-foot cliff. And so I switched cameras and actually decided not to get a bunch of the tried and true migration, all these animals piling through the river. I mean, it was that drama, is the thing we've been waiting for days. And I decided that for me, the drama was this one wildebeest. And so I switched to shooting. I can't remember if I shot that on 400 or if I shot that on 560. I think it was 560, but I actually tried some settings and dropped the camera. I actually held and just hit the shutter and dropped a couple times and looked at what that looked like in the viewfinder, changed some settings and thought, okay, I think this is what I want to try to do. And waited and waited and waited. And finally, I had beanbag set up, and, it was I didn't have a tripod to tilt. So I was trying to figure out the best smooth way to do it. And, like I said, practice a half dozen times and said, hey, it's going to jump. It's going to jump. Sure enough, just did the leap of faith. I mean, to its detriment. I mean, the outcome was not good on that. But I didn't even look back at that photo. Things were so chaotic. I shot the 10, 12 frames and then flipped that camera off and picked up the 7200 and went back to firing the other direction. I didn't look at that photo for maybe 5 weeks. It just was, and I mean, I'd set up for it and I wanted it, and I got as close to the photo as I had in my mind was what that print turned out to be. But I mean, that was not a shot that was planned. And so much of what I say great photography is you have to have pretty much these shots in your head before you go to get them. Rarely are you sitting there and just an animal goes by, like you said, you take the shot and you go, oh, that's great. You have to figure out how to get on the other side of the river. You have to wait 10 minutes for the light. You need, the hyenas are going to have to push the animals this way for the line to do its thing. The cheetah's got to do its deal like that. And you have to watch how those cards are going to shuffle up so that you can, get that hand instead of, getting the lucky hand. You want to draw the ace out of there. And this was one of those exceptions. I mean, once it stopped on the edge, I saw it, but the days leading up to it, that was nowhere in my plan was getting a solo animal jumping. It was all the animals going through the river, right? That's what I wanted to get.
Jason Loftus and I talked about that recently too, where it's like you go into some of these trips or days in the field and you've got things in your mind that maybe you want to try to accomplish and compositions and things, but at the same time, you're dealing with wild animals. You're not on a commercial shoot where you get to direct talent to do a certain thing and look a certain way and walk and act a certain way. Like, they're wild animals. So I think the ability as a photographer to one, know your gear, know the technical side of things, and have the quick ability to adjust on the fly, like you said, changing cameras, without sitting there and fiddling around with, okay, I'm going to change my shutter. I need a little more shutter speed. I need a little more of this and a little more. Like, you don't have time to do that. And so I think going all the way back to the business side of things with photo tours and with workshops and seminars, I think the ability to help teach people that. Some people are going to go on these trips and they've never held a mirrorless camera or a lens bigger than maybe what they've got on their phone. And to be able to kind of coach people through some of these things, and yet at the same time, when it all comes down to it, your experience level doesn't matter when things are unfolding in front of you and you just got to kind of take it in.
Yeah.
Have you had any moments in Africa where you mentioned it with Chris a little bit, but where you just put the camera down and just kind of took it in?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I would say that Chris and I probably spent more time, photographing with him than anybody else, than any individual person. And we shoot well together. We've got some very similar camera gear, so we've actually got the ability to swap things out if we, need to at the time, or hey, do you have an extra battery handy and things like that. And the camaraderie is part of it too, right? I mean, like going out with your buddies and getting these shots and things. Yeah, the photography's good, but also, we're giving each other crap the entire time. I mean, it's not a friendly environment. I mean, if you come into our circles, you better have thick skin. And so we've had many times where we're watching things going on and it's just, there's not an epic photo to have. So we crack a beer and we just sit there and watch things happen and enjoy Africa and the wildlife and just being outdoors. I mean, wholeheartedly. We got talked into going to shoot photos and videos of hippos. And and literally we had said that morning, okay, we can go get lions. Let's look for cheetahs, but we definitely don't need to get any more giraffe. We definitely don't need any more buffalo. We definitely don't need any more hippos. And this driver of ours takes off in the afternoon. We said, where are we going? And he said, I'm going to take you guys to these hippos. And we said, we don't want hippos. And he said, yeah, I'm taking you to these hippos. And so we said, all right, we'll go for a second. Apparently, I mean, we'll humor and whatnot. Well, what we didn't realize was there was a dead hippo, and there were crocodiles that were eating on this hippo, and there were other hippos that were fighting the crocodiles. And the light was crappy. It was kind of early afternoon. We were at a bad angle. There wasn't any super photography to be had there. I mean, we took some shots and there's some cool storytelling, but it's not great, technical print style photography. But it was 2 hours of one of the coolest things I've ever seen. There were catfish eating this hippo, barbel, and we watched a hippo just about smash a crocodile in half that it didn't see coming for it. And so, yeah, it is nice when sometimes you don't have the camera firing away and you do get to just sit back and appreciate the venue and the wildlife that, you're supposed to appreciate.
Yeah. The you do experience the circle of life, and there are some things, especially in Africa, that you experience that are, they're a little hard to watch, hard to experience, hard to, like I said, circle of life, where it's, a dead hippo and this convergence of animals that are feasting and surviving because of it. I think that kind of leads us into maybe the next image that you shared of the lion, which is a powerful one. It's gritty, it's raw, but it's a reality of what happens in nature. This lion obviously is surviving because of the death or the kill of something else. Talk a little bit. I mean, the you know the brutal honesty of the photo is apparent to anybody that looks at it. But talk a little bit about what led up to this, what you were experiencing, kind of what was going through your mind as you came upon this scene.
So this was probably like day 4, I'm going to say, of going to see lions on this giraffe kill. A lot of times when they get a kill, the scene's only good for 30 minutes, or maybe it's good for a day. Then the hyenas and the jackals and the vultures move in, and there's not much that's left over for you to shoot for photography. Plus, it's rather macabre, right? So there's not a lot of great photography to get when it's bloody and scabby, and there's things laying on the ground, bones and whatnot. So this was kind of the end of this scene. We went to see if there was any other lions that had maybe moved in. Sometimes you would get them standing early morning on the sides there, and so it wasn't to be shooting that exact death scene so much as it was to see if we could get something else from lions. So it turns out that this one male comes into play, and he goes over to eat a little bit more, and there are no shots to be had because it's this leftover carcass, right? Until he starts to get inside it, and we're in the safari vehicle with 5 or 6 other people, and almost everybody else is shooting these other lions kind of around on the side. And I was looking at the light going through this rib cage and this lion that was on the inside, and it just kind of clicked that I wonder if I can get a shot of his eye through the ribs inside this giraffe. And I just stayed on it for probably 10 minutes until he just happened to pause at the right time and smashed a few frames, and I got that crazy image.
Yeah, that line right there. I just wanted to see if I could get a shot of the eye of the lion peering through the inside of the ribs of the giraffe. I don't think that phrase has ever been uttered in human history before. But what a unique, crazy unique experience. I love the incredible part for me. I mean, from a composition standpoint, it's phenomenal with just the kind of the slicing line, that goes diagonal, and I'm captured by it's the whiskers, it's the old carcass meat, and then you caught that eye right in between the 2 ribs, and then still got like catch light in the eye, which is incredible. Technically, how did you shoot? Like, how close were you, and what lens did you use, and kind of what were you waiting for on that front?
So I was actually very close. And it's shooting down, right? So we were so close that the angle in that safari vehicle would usually not be a very good angle. And I'm going to say we were probably maybe 50 feet away, maybe. And I was shooting that with a 400 2.8. And so, I mean, it was a super tight. And the thing of it is the way that eye just got snap focused there. I've had people that have seen that photo that ask me what it is. They know that the lion's there, but they're so hyper focused on that eye that they don't realize that it's inside and that that's a rib cage. They think it's sticks or they don't get, then once you tell them, it's like the, oh, wow moment, like, oh, now, oh God. And so, I mean, I guess that, the photo did what it was supposed to, because it draws you straight to that eye.
For sure. When you sent it to me, originally talking about trying to get together and doing this show, you sent me the photo. I think you texted it to me first, and I was on a boat on a fishing shoot, and the text popped up, and you said, here's a couple images, and I remember like stopping what I was doing and looking down at it, and like, you kind of, I was expecting, oh, here's a beautiful photo of a lion with the sunset, or here's a leopard or a cheetah or something. And I remember looking at it like, what is it? It looked like kind of a muddy mess as you just glanced down at
Right?
the little thumbnail on my phone, and then I tapped on it and pulled it up, and then I kind of, did the pinch and zoom, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is what I thought it was. But that, I think that's one of the things that great photographers can do. Like anybody, Jason and I chuckled about. I'm not going to say anybody, but anybody can go to Brooks Falls and get the shot, of the
Right.
bear catching the salmon. And
Right.
if there's a male lion that's walking down the road, and you're sitting at, like, most people can get that. But I think great photographers and the ultimate in creatives can sometimes see things that most people aren't going to recognize, and take the time to try to capture it. And sometimes you have to wait on those things. But I love to sometimes be the one outlier guy that's over here waiting for something or doing something that might be different than what everybody else anticipates. And I think this is a great example of that in this photo. This is not your Africa photo, but when you stop and take it all in, it's like, man, that is, in a real brutal, gritty kind of way, that is Africa.
For sure. For sure. Well, and also what you said there about, the different people and different perspective. I know I've been with 5 or 6 other great photographers that I know very well, and we're very close to each other. And if they're in a safari vehicle or damn near shoulder to shoulder, whether it's Alaska or Yellowstone or Africa itself. And so you've all got the same angle, you've all got the same light, you've all got the same subject matter. And how do you come up with completely different photos? Everybody sees something different. I mean, there'll be some similarities, but I mean, there will be some that are completely different photos altogether. Right? One person's getting the yawn while the next person's getting the paw that's turned to the side. Somebody's focused on the tail twitch, or maybe the lions are bokeh out and it's the giraffe standing behind eating. The composition is so different between these people. And I think that's the genius of photography, is that, you can put all these people in the same venue and everybody's going to have a different artistic perspective.
Yeah, I think, you mentioned it with the safari vehicle, and a lot of people have asked me, like, what is the experience like? I mean, we're not out with too often with a backpack on walking amongst the lions. You're in a vehicle, you're driving, you're trying to, like you said, you're experiencing maybe the same thing with 3, 4, 5, 6 other people at the same time. From a photo tour standpoint, and from people that maybe are interested in doing this, what are some of the things, whether it be Africa, I mean, you've got trips going to Africa, Yellowstone, different places around the world, but what are some things to consider if you are, maybe a budding photographer or a hobbyist, or somebody that's like, I just love taking pictures and I want to go do one of these trips? What are some things to think about or to consider if you're one of those people?
First thing I would say is you don't have to have a great big lens. I would say that most people over lens Africa most of the time. They want to bring their 600, they want to bring their 800. Maybe they want to shoot their 600 and their 800. They want to put their doubler on their 600 so they can shoot a 1200. And my experiences are based on how close I can get people. So I've got photos that I've shot on 14 millimeter. Some of my favorite photos I've shot between 14 and 55. I've got that 55 nice that I go to considerably. My number one lens in the field is the 70 to 200, and I shoot a lot of it between 70 and 100. So, I mean, that'd be the very first thing I would say is if you want to get super tights and you want portraits and you're not wanting to shoot landscapes, fine. we'll just get closer. If I mean, if you've got the lens right now for 100 yards, well, it'd be better light, less atmosphere if we can get 20 yards away instead of 100 yards away. So let's see if we can't make that happen. Let's see if we can't, get in there. Um, and so, I mean, backing up to what the whole experience is like, if you ask Jason, and a lot of people that have been on these with me, they will tell you that I don't do photography tours. I do food safaris, and then we take cameras with us, because it is a very quote unquote gentlemanly type trip. We get up in the morning and we have coffee and tea. We get in a safari vehicle in the dark to head out. We go shoot our photos until we lose great light. Then we stop and have like a light field breakfast and, coffee and tea again. And then we head back and we have a real breakfast when we get back. And then you look at photos in the middle of the day. And then in the afternoon, you go back out again. And at the end, you have sundowners, a cocktail and a beer, and sit on the edge of the river and watch the sunset and get some of your photos. And then you go back and then you have appetizers and then you have dinner and then you look at photos and then you restart. So there's a lot of food involved in these. So the experience is very, nice accommodation, nice tent, nice lodging. And then when it gets into the vehicles, it's an exploratory adventure. It's driving around looking for opportunities, looking for animals, looking for the shots obviously that we want to get. And then it's a matter of, okay, there's the animals. Where do we want to be? How do we get in front of them? How do we make the shot? And I'm real big on getting in front of it and not chasing it. So where are the animals going to be in a little bit? Where's the light going to be? And how do we get in front of that process?
I think the Africa experience, there's the time where you have the cameras in your hand and you're doing what you went there to do. But man, like you said, the food, the experience, the drinks, the camaraderie, all of the stuff that goes along with being there to take photos, I think has been some of the just the most cherished moments and times that I've had. I asked you about, have you ever put the camera down? And it's like, I can think of so many times where, you're sitting there on a sundowner and you're watching the Mara and listening to the animals, and you got a beer in your hand, and it's like, there's part of me that's like, oh, I want to capture photos of this, but it's like, why? Like, to have it stored in your mind.
How about the nightlife?
That's as valuable as anything, I think.
Sitting in the boma with the fire, looking at the stars, listen to the hyenas and the leopards and the lions in the distance. I mean,
percent.
Yeah. I mean, that's doing nothing in Africa is as good as all the things. So,
exactly. The other photo that I did want to just talk about quickly with you is the one of the leopard. Man, the thing that's they are a really striking animal, whether it be in the middle of the day or in great light. The light on this one is just so, oh man, it's incredible. It seems like they've got a stippled look to them anyway, and it looks like this leopard is probably, in some trees, and you maybe snuck up on it, but it's got a very stealthy look to it. And then you've got kind of these little beams of light landing on it, catching its whiskers, catching its eyes, some of its pattern. Talk a little bit about that.
This was kind of another one of those happy accident photos, right? Like, we were trying to get approaching leopard, but we just caught this leopard late in the morning. It was not your typical last light or very first light leopard. It looked like it, maybe had some, stalks that didn't go well. So it was trying to find something still. I mean, I'm going to say it was probably 10 o'clock in the morning. The light was horrible. I mean, it was so hot. It couldn't have been worse. And we were getting some shots coming through the grass, trying to do some high key things, trying to get creative, because, I mean, hey, when you get a leopard, you get a leopard. It's not like that's a all day, every day kind of thing. That's a special flash in the pan. So we were trying to capitalize and get as much as we could. And it finally started to get to some brush where we weren't able to follow nearby vehicles. And we kind of made the last turn. It was kind of a dead end, like it's going to go to an area we can't go. And there were a couple other vehicles with us, and they pulled off. They'd already kind of given up and decided that there wasn't anything to get. I happened to be with Chris Hood again, and he just quit shooting when it stepped into the brush, and I stayed on it, and it was walking straight away from us and going into this super dark tunnel that had these rays of light going into it. And it happened to stop and turn its head sideways and did one look back. I got 3 frames and it turned and disappeared. And it's one of my favorite photos. It's absolutely one of my favorite photos.
I think what you're saying is like if you were to talk about a leopard and what they are stealthy, they're secret, they're quiet, they're lurking in the dark, and it's like this photo like captured all of that. And like you said, it kind of walked in and it turned and it gave you that one moment, and it did leopard things in an incredible way for you to be able to capture a photo of a leopard doing what it does.
Yeah. I mean, look, the leopard is my favorite thing to photograph. Big cats are my forte. I mean, my safaris are definitely mostly big cat safaris. We do the rest of the big five and everything else except birds and ducks. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. So, but in these safaris where we're trying to find the leopards, that's what you're doing. You're trying to find them. It's not like this afternoon we're going to go get leopard. Sometimes you get bad light with a beautiful cat. Sometimes you get great light and it's just stuck in the sticks. Sometimes it's the backside of the tree. Sometimes you can barely see it moving through the grass. The amount of times I've seen leopards versus the amount of times I've gotten decent photographs of leopards, I mean, it's like 5 to 1. No, I mean, seeing a leopard and getting great photographs for a leopard are not the same thing. It's not like lions. Lions are pretty easy to photograph. Elephants are pretty easy to photograph. I think leopard's the hardest thing to find, and then it's the hardest thing to photograph after that. So when you get one of those epic images, I mean, you've kind of won the lottery. I mean,
Yeah,
you've
yeah,
got what you came for. I mean, if you have a complaint, I don't know what it would be because that's the holy grail of Africa.
for sure. If as we kind of land the plane here a little bit, what if folks have been tempted or intrigued or want to do some, I hear it all the time. Oh man, I'd love to go do that someday, and it is a bucket list trip type of thing for a lot of people, but it's not out of the realm of budget and experience for people. If people are truly interested in doing this, what does that look like? I know VoyagerSafaris.com is kind of a place that they could go to see a little bit more, with what you offer and where you've got opportunities and stuff. But just, sell the experience and the opportunity a little bit. Tell me about that.
Well, primarily, I work in South Africa. I do Eastern Africa photography as well. We'll do Kenya, Tanzania, Zambia, Namibia for the Kalahari, different places for different reasons, different times of the year. But I'll lean towards South Africa more so because of the experience, the totality. It's almost impossible to beat the food. It is nearly impossible to beat the hospitality. And then you're in a situation usually where you're solo in your vehicle, or maybe there's 2, or maybe there's 3 vehicles. The Eastern Africa experience, what ruins it for me is when there's 6 or 8 or 10 or 20 or 50 safari vehicles at the same venue. And it's also wide open spaces. And you get a lot of that naturescape landscape when you're in the, places like the Mara, you're in the Serengeti, but a lot of times it's tough to get close encounters. And we're always getting close encounters in South Africa. And, you don't get as much of the moonscape, the wide open blank canvas. But for portrait people and people that want to have close interactions, I don't know how you beat it. And, I've kind of done all those different trips over there. I've been Botswana, Zambia, Zimbabwe, I mean, you name it. And I would say that 65, 70% of what I do is South Africa because of that total experience.
Mm-hmm.
And like one that I'm putting together for next year, it is definitely a leopard focused. We're going to the highest density area of leopards that exists in Africa, and we'll get all the other things, but we'll probably have true opportunities at leopards every day. And I do safaris that can cost as much as 30, 40 grand, but I also do some stuff that starts off at about 4 grand. So, and the difference really is not much in the photography. It has to do with accommodations and lodging. So, if you don't need to have the fancy, Brad Pitt style posh, Prince Harry thing, Great. There's great lodging and fantastic food and people that you don't have to break the bank or save up for years to be able to do. And I like that aspect myself because we've both done a lot of the DIY backcountry camping, tenting, horseback things, and it's not quite like that, but it's a much more bare bones type safari, and I think that lends itself to a true Africa experience.
For sure. Where is the website the best place to go if people are interested in looking into
Yeah,
this with?
yeah, I'd say it's Voyager Safari or Voyager Safaris, either one.com. My Instagram page has got a fair bit of stuff on there. It's more photography than the camps and things, but we post stories and real time things bouncing around. So Voyager underscore Drew, they can get a piece of what's going on there as well.
Yeah. I would I mean, we've talked about, doing Africa together, and it would just be really fun to, be able to experience this and kind of teach and share together with other people, some of what we've each experienced individually. The times that we have been together and shot stuff together, it's always been a riot. I think, we talked about it earlier in this podcast. Like, so much of that is not just coming home with images. It's thinking back to the experience of the camaraderie, the people you were with, and truly like loving the whole experience, not just coming back with images. It's one of the things I appreciate about you and about our time together is it's been fun and enjoyable and creative and challenging and just all of those things. I hope we get a chance to do Africa together soon. And if people are interested in a trip like that Drew is putting together and, executing these trips just to the nines every time. He's got a great ability, with hospitality and organization. And, if you end up doing one of these trips with Drew, you're going to not have to worry about all of the logistics. You can go and just truly take in the experience, come away with great images and great memories for sure.
Yeah, you can pack the extra batteries, but you can leave the stress at home.
Right, right. Well, hey, I really appreciate the time. It was too long coming that we were trying to coordinate this, and I appreciate you coming and sharing some of your beautiful images. If you want to see more of Drew's work, Voyager Safari, Voyager Safaris, Voyager underscore Drew on Instagram. He's got an incredible talent, an incredible eye, and just one of the true good guys in the industry. I appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about what you do and the stories that went behind it today, Drew.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. I do appreciate it. Been a good chat as always, and yeah, we need to plan that Africa trip for sure.
We'll do that again soon, buddy. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you next time for some more stories behind the images that you see out there in the world. Appreciate you stopping by today.